Hi, Seth Green here. Welcome to another episode of Financial Advisor Marketing TV, where we do direct response marketing for financial advisors in under 10 minutes. So, one of the things that financial advisors tell me is that their biggest challenge is getting more people in the door. They'll tell me that when they can get a client, a prospect, in the door, they usually make them a client. So, however, what I found is if you dig a little deeper, that's not always the case. So my question to you is, do you actually track your closing ratio? Do you know how many new prospects you saw so far this year? This year should be relatively easy. We're only in month 3. How many did you see so far this year? And how many of them became clients? And obviously if you're 10 for 10, you're at 100% and should be in the Hall of Fame as long as you can do that with 100 to 100. If, let's say, you were 6 out of 10, then your closing ratio is 60%. So once you actually know your numbers, you can find out where the holes are in your financial advisor business and figure out how to fix them. So a lot of times when financial advisors will say, well, now that I figured out what my closing ratio is, it isn't as good as I thought. And what do I do to fix it? So the first thing I tell them is to start taping their sessions with their prospects. So what that means is get like a little MP3 player at Office Depot for 20 bucks, 30 bucks, and start taping every single meeting you have with prospects, from the initial meeting and the fact find, to the financial plan presentation, to the ACAT paperwork meeting, to the recommendations where you start moving money around, to performance reviews, all of that stuff. Tape it, and then listen to it. And you're going to be absolutely amazed at what you find, because what you think you are telling your clients and prospects is not what you are actually doing. Another great reason to do this is for compliance purposes. If you save every single meeting you have with both prospects and clients, and you have it recorded, you have, if there's ever a compliance issue or an arbitration, you've got an open and shut case. You're easily off the hook, because the client could say, oh, I didn't understand what I bought, and you immediately go back, and instead of saying, well, here are my notes on this meeting, or here's what I think happened, which a client could say, well, that's not my recollection, and the client a lot of the times will win. If you play a recording of the client, of you explaining something to the client, and the client understanding it, they have no case. So it's double purpose. 1, you'll get better at selling because you'll listen to yourself. And 2, you also have a compliance cover your assets library of meetings. Now, one of the biggest errors I find when financial advisors will email me, they'll send me an MP3 file, an audio recording of a client meeting, and say, can you listen to this and tell me what I did right and what I did wrong? Two of the biggest issues are, number 1, not following a scripted sales process. Even if you're doing a financial plan update or a review, you should have an agenda for that meeting. It should be typed, it should be printed. A lot of times for clients, we'll laminate them and give to the clients and say, this is what we're doing this meeting. We actually have a roadmap that tells the client and us every quarter what we're doing when we get together for the next 2 years in a row. And then every quarter we update and check off what we did and change colors on stuff that was late or stuff that didn't get done. So everybody automatically knows what they're responsible for and what they're doing every quarter. So you should have a process where, for example, your initial interview, where you do the fact find, should be scripted. Now, you don't have to go out and buy anybody's script. You can make your own by taping your own appointments, having those transcribed, and then putting together your questions in an order along with the time that you talk should be the same, pretty much the same every time. And once you have a proven process that works, that closes at a rate that you're happy with, then you can, once it's documented, not only can you follow it and will you be better at closing because you're following your own process, but now other financial planners in your office or people who work for you can follow the exact same process and have similar results, which is very big, because in the financial advisory business, one producer can only do so much. You don't get any leverage off of producing yourself unless you have other financial advisors under you who produce for you and you take an override on. And if they follow your process, then they instantly jump the learning curve to do something much more powerful. The other mistake I see financial advisors making a lot of the times is they talk too much. In a client or prospect meeting, you should be talking 10% of the time. Your client or prospect should be talking 90% of the time. Now, there are exceptions to this. If you're presenting a financial plan and going over numbers, obviously you're not going to make them read it out loud. You're going to tell them what the numbers say. And if you're recommending a XYZ fund or annuity or insurance policy, you may have to tell them, obviously, a little bit about the product or service that they're buying. However, for example, in a fact find, which is arguably one of the most important meetings you'll ever have, is you should be talking 10% of the time. So if that's an hour meeting, that means you should talk for 6 minutes, and the client should, or prospect should talk for 54 minutes. And if you time yourself when you listen to your recordings, I will be very surprised if you don't find that you're talking a lot more than 10% of the time. The problem is, telling is not selling. We actually sell when we ask questions and let the client do the talking. That's when the real sales actually happen. So I would make sure that you're not talking too much, and I would make sure that when you are talking, it's something that's important that you have to get across no other way, that you can't get them to tell you. Because if you are doing the talking, a lot of the times you are not doing the selling. And if you don't have a proven process for selling, you'll default to your client's process or prospect's process for buying. And then you're completely out of control of the interview and the relationship. So just to recap, start taping your meetings, start following a script, even if it's one you develop yourself, that works, that closes at a very high rate. And 3, make sure that the prospect or client is doing most of the talking. That's it for this week. Looking forward to seeing you next time on marketdominationprogram.com/TV, or as we call it, the Financial Advisor Marketing Television Show. Thanks so much for your time.